So I'm sitting there and I can't get a hold of him on the phone and nothing. And then I start shaking uncontrollably. I move over to the opposite side of the couch and I'm just like, something's wrong. Like I just could feel it in my bones. Like I'm getting chills telling you about it. Something's wrong. Something's not right. And Chuck's like, you got to come down. You're going to have a heart attack. I'm like, this is not a heart attack. Something's physically wrong with him. And we got to find him. He's like, we can't go find him. Where are we going to go look for him? And so I got up like on and off all night long, like, and so nothing. And so Brittany's calling and we can't get anything. I call in hospitals, nothing. So in that morning, I have my computer on, trying to do some work. And all of a sudden across my phone comes this news feed that says Brandon Mann dies in single car accident. And I look at the feed and I'm like, that looks like my car, but I'm not 100% sure. So then I email the article to my email so I can look it up on my laptop. And there it was, my car wrapped around a tree.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Trauma Uncensored. I'm your host, Brooke Shearer. We've got another great episode for you today, which we will jump into shortly. If you're a regular listener of this podcast, thank you for your continued support. And if this is your first time listening, I'm so glad you found us. This podcast was created as a safe space for community, connection, resources, and support for anyone navigating trauma, grief, mental health, or pain. Here, your experiences are both valid and valued. Your story matters, and it's important to know you are not walking this path alone. It is my hope that each episode helps you feel more connected and reminds you that it is possible to not only live, but to truly thrive after hardship. Trauma Uncensored began as an extension of my own healing journey following immense trauma. The course of my life changed in the fall of 2015 and led to the tragic death of our 9-year-old son, Logan, in 2016 due to a distracted driver whose reckless choice behind the wheel led to the crash. In the time since Logan was taken from us, I have fought for my mental health and for my survival. That fight has led me down an unexpected path of discovery, healing, and recovery. It has given me the tools to sit here today and share these conversations with you. If you're new to the Trauma Uncensored podcast, I invite you to start with episode 1 titled The Crash. In that episode, I share the beginning of my story, which provides important context for the conversations and guest stories that follow. Speaking of guests, we believe our listeners' voices matter deeply, and we welcome those who wish to share their experiences. If interested, click on the submission link in our show notes below, email hello@traumauncensored.com, or reach out through any of our social platforms. Just be sure to include the word guest in your submission. All show information, resources, and links can also be found in the show notes. Be sure to follow us on our social media platforms and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. And if this podcast speaks to you, and I'm sure it will, we would truly appreciate you leaving a review. Before we begin, a quick and important disclaimer. This podcast discusses topics related to grief, loss, trauma, mental health challenges, survival, and more. While I have gained deep personal experience in these areas, I am not a therapist, and this show is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. So stay tuned for another installment of Trauma Uncensored, where, as always, we're healing out loud.
Trauma Uncensored.
Trauma Uncensored. Trauma Uncensored.
Pearl, I'm so excited to have you today. Thank you for joining us on the Trauma Uncensored podcast.
I'm so excited to be here. I'm very honored that you are having me on the show today as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I have to say, I'm so sorry in the way we are meeting. And I'm really excited to get you in front of our listeners and have them hear your story and hear not just the story of grief and loss and child loss. So we unfortunately are members of a club that nobody wants to belong to. So we have similarities in stories. However, I also know of, the work that you've done to, heal from that. And I don't know, help me out here. Do you think we ever fully heal, like a 150% heal from child loss? Or is healing what we do, always knowing that we're walking forward with it and it's always going to be a thing that we're living with. What do you think?
Well, that's a great question. It's kinda interesting you're asking me that right now. I feel like we're never fully healed from it. I feel like it's sort of like that Band-Aid. Like today, I had a scab on my arm today, and I actually was thinking about this. I'm like, I took the scab off. I'm like, and then I'm like, but it's still kinda there. Like, you can still kinda see it. So it's sort of like
Mhm.
you have that wound that's there, that it's not gonna go away. You just find a way to, like, take care of it.
Mhm.
And it's interesting because 'cause we're only 3.5 years since we lost Matthew, and the beginning of this year, it was I thought I was gonna be good because my youngest son turned 25, which is Nate was the, Matthew, sorry, was passed at 25. So I was, like, going into the year going, "Okay, I'm gonna be good," Matt's 25, Nate's 25, but by February, end of February, middle of March, I realized I really wasn't good. I kinda had just,
Yeah.
like, kept that in there, and so I realized that I really wasn't like, that was part of the healing, like, that's the part of not being fully healed, and then, about the end of March, when I recognized it, I was like, okay, I gotta, this needs to be the year that I kind of like tune back into who I am and what I do. And like, so I actually told somebody about a month ago, I said, this is the first time I feel like I'm walking with my grief and my joy together, like
Oh,
side
yeah.
by side. Like I'm
Mhm.
not choosing one or the other. Like the first year, Matt passed July 2 weeks after his birthday, July 22. And like that first year, I was like, I felt like I just sort of existed, like, I just kind of was going through the motions of every day, and then the second year, I was, like, going, "Okay, he's really not gonna walk back in the door, so this is reality." But
Mhm.
this year, I feel like, "Okay, I can do this." There's gonna be days that are gonna be heavier than the other days, but I can still walk with both. I can
Right.
honor both, and I feel like this is the first year that I've actually been able to do it. So I feel like, to your question, I feel like we're never gonna heal from it. It's always gonna be that scab that's gonna be there, and how you decide to pick at it or not is how you're gonna face your day or your year or that month.
Absolutely agree. Thank you for starting out with that. It's one of those things that, I mean, I was thinking about or talking about this the other day with someone. I went into this holiday season as I try to every year. I've got a 14-year-old and a 6-year-old. So I try to keep the holidays alive for them.
Right.
And I like to I get into the lights and, the decorating. I love the lights as a creative. I've always just loved lights. And this is my favorite time of year because of everything that just shines and it's so warm. And I look forward to it. And I was talking the other day and I was like, I don't want anything to do with the holidays this year. And what's interesting is that last year was different. I was all into it. So it's one of those, I mean, really, it's an unexpected journey, I would say, unexpected healing journey where there are going to be times where, you're going to be at peace with it. And then there are just things that are going to bring up, throughout the rest of your life that are going to remind you and it's going to be hard. And it also doesn't mean that, just because those things come up, we have to ball into this big, black hole and
Yeah.
choose to just exist and not thrive. So,
Yeah. I'm glad you said that about Christmas because I think I'm in the same spot as you are this year. Like, the first year Matt passed was like, it's just kinda like I did some stuff, but really last year I was all into it. So, just to kinda give you a background about me and Christmas, I am like the Christmas movie you've seen. I have
yeah.
Christmas everything is, like, coming out of my ears.
Hallmark
So
sponsors you.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So the year before the year Matt passed, I kinda really I put some stuff up, his girlfriend came over, we put some things up, and then last year I went, like, all into it, had everything, like, it can take me 2 weeks to decorate inside my house, I was all into it, and then this year, Chuck and I were like, we're going, "Okay, Nate and Amy are not gonna be here. Brittany, who is Matt's girlfriend, and her daughter, they're in New Jersey, so it's just gonna be us." I'm like, I don't really feel it, I don't feel like doing it." And then all of a sudden, Brittany, who Matt had a beautiful girlfriend, Brittany is her name, and he loved her daughter like his own. Her dad's not in her life, and Matt, from the minute he met her, was like all enamored with Evie. And so they moved up. It would have been 2 years. It was about a year after Matt passed. They moved up to New Jersey, and she's been trying to get back. And 2 weeks ago, we were visiting a friend and she texts and says, "Oh my God, I got the best news ever. She's got an opportunity to come back. So she's moved back down last weekend. She's 2 hours from us. But so now I'm like telling Chuck, I go, I have to do something for Christmas because
Yeah.
she's gonna be here.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna put some stuff out, and we're actually even late putting stuff on Matt's graveside. My
Mhm.
mom, when Matt passed that year, that first Christmas, she called me out of the blue and she's like, I need to put a blanket down on Matt's grave. I'm like, a blanket? Like, Mom, what are you talking about? A blanket? And she's like, yeah, a blanket like greenery. I'm like, honest to God, Mom, I don't know. And so she explained to me that up north in the wintertime, they put these greenery blankets down on the grave sites. And I'm like, oh, so my friend here, Craig, I called him. He's like, I'm just going to make you one you can reuse every year. So I'm even behind putting that in his graveside this year. I don't know what it is. I kind of like what you're saying. It's like, I feel it, but I don't feel it. And I'm like, so
Mhm.
my husband and I today, after we get done doing this, we're actually going to go and put it down. And Matthew, I always like to go do it because I know he's having a fit up in heaven because he hated and got frustrated putting together the Christmas stuff for me. And so I go all out in lights on his graveside. So we're gonna go
That's
do that this afternoon.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So you've laid out all of this information for us, Pearl, and we have yet to introduce you formally so people know. I mean, they've obviously got a little bit of a taste of what your story is, but I'd like to formally introduce Pearl Chiarenza. As or as the listeners have already heard, Pearl's son passed away 3 years ago. His name is Matthew. Her and her family, what's very interesting about this, her family found out from the news. She turned on the news the next morning and found that her son had been involved in a car accident and had perished. So I'm very eager to get in and hear more about that. Today, Pearl speaks publicly about her loss, how she has navigated racism from family after her son's death, and learning to walk in joy and grief at the same time. So this content is exactly, what this podcast is about, and I can't wait to dive in and hear more. A little bit more of about Pearl. She is a Say Yes to Your Life coach. She's a speaker and founder of Women's Successful Living, where she helps women stop people pleasing and start living with purpose, joy, and confidence. Through her signature SHERO method, which I love that acronym SHERO, which empowers women to become stronger, happier, empowered, radiant, and original. Pearl guides clients to set guilt free boundaries, rediscover their true selves, and say no as proudly as they can say yes. She is also the creator of the Soulful Self Care PJ retreats, where women unplug, release expectations, and reconnect to who they are beyond their titles. Love it all. So excited for this. So, lots to share, lots to learn about you, lots to engage with the listeners. But before we do that, I was hoping you could do one thing for me. Your son Matthew, he died July 25th, 2022. Interestingly, that happens to be my oldest daughter's birthday. So when I saw that, I was like, "Oh, I don't believe in coincidences." So I very much feel we were meant to connect. Um, but he was 25 years old when he passed away. And I would like for you to get into the details of that. But before you do, I would love for you to introduce Matthew to us. Who is Matthew? What were his characteristics? What are the things that he loves? Please honor us and telling us about him.
I would love to introduce you to Matthew. So Chuck and I have been married for 38 years. 10 years of our marriage when we first got married was trying to have a family. And we were doing everything, nothing was working, infertility, you can name it. And we started on this adoption journey. And somebody said, tell all your friends you're trying to adopt because you never know. Well, you never know. It came true about a month after we lost my amazing father in law. I truly believe he set the tone for Matt to come into our life. And so Chuck was away on a business trip. I got this phone call and said, hey, I'm Chuck's coworker. Do you remember me? I'm like, of course I do. And so she's like, I know this girl that's had this child. And they have 2 weeks to find a family for him because the family they had found for Matthew had fallen through. And the reason why it fallen through is because it was in California and the birth mom was in the middle of a divorce. So the bio father and the soon to be ex-husband were two different people. And so they both had rights. So they couldn't afford the attorney. So my husband was away on a business trip. I had to find him through his boss. This was before cell phones and all the fun stuff. So we went out and we sat down. We talked about adopting Matthew. Now, Matthew is mixed race. And so one of the things we talked about was, is it a safe environment for us to bring Matthew into our family? Because we were concerned about how some of our family would, react to him being of mixed race. And so we went through the whole list and we knew some people that we would lose in our life and we were good with that. Matt would be safe. So we went on that journey. My parents were, behind us, and my mother-in-law, she was so excited. And so literally Matthew was 1 month old and I went with his biological mom to pick him up at the foster care home where he was at. And we joke and tell Matthew we ordered him at a restaurant because my my mom and I and Shandon went to this little restaurant, sat in the back of a booth and signed all this paperwork. So in California, you could be done in 24 hours with a adoption. You're done, you can go home. But because we lived in Virginia, we weren't allowed to just bring Matthew home. So we had to do this whole cross-state adoption. Long story short, about another month and a half, I was finally able to come home. Thank goodness my parents lived in California at the time. So we stayed with him while Chuck was in Virginia. So Chuck had not met Matthew this whole time. And again, all we had was like fax stuff. We couldn't we didn't have cell phones to just send all these pictures like we do today. And so that was, almost 27 years ago. And so I get home and, Matt is this fun little boy. He's got this curly as of hair. From the minute you met him, you fell in love with him. All the ladies in the grocery store just loved him to death. And so a funny story about Matthew is he had these curly locks. As he got older, he went out one day. By the time this happened, our younger son, Nate, had come along. And so he decided to go with my husband to go get his haircut. And so it was first time Mommy didn't go with him to get the haircut. And I'm not kidding you. I'm sitting in my office and I'm working sideways at the chair and Matt comes, Mommy, look at my hair. And I turn around and he's bald.
Oh, no.
Now I about flip out. I'm like, tell my husband, what did you do with his curly hair? I tell you that story because fast forward later, Matthew was all about his hair. He would go and have friends, girls he knew at school would do the cornrows in his hair and everything because Matt was Czechoslovakian and Haitian. So he was mixed race. And so he was all about his hair. But he used to say to me, I can't believe you ever let me cut my hair. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. You had to have your hair cut at some point or another. And you're the one who chose to go bald, not me. So that was a fun story, but that was who Matt was. Matt was fun. He was fun to be around, but he was also very serious. He didn't like when people weren't honest with him. He struggled with where he came from. And so his bio mom would never be honest with him with who his biological dad was. And so he had that struggle in his life. Now, I have to tell you about his brother that goes along with this. Matthew loved his little brother. Matthew and Nate, they had this love-hate relationship. They would, of course, have their little sibling things. But Matthew idolized his little brother because he just felt that Nate was so smart. Nate can build computers and all this. He just looked up to Nate. He just loved Nate so much. But Nate, I have to tell you a funny story. When Nate was little, we were in Virginia and he was out playing in the snow and Nate struggled to speak when he was younger. And so he came in one day and I love this story. He came in and he's like crying uncontrollably. You know that one, you're trying to calm down. He's like, okay, you've got to come down. Tell me what's wrong. Well, in the meantime, while he's doing that, he's scratching at his arms, like to the point that they're red. I'm like, I said, Nate, you have to stop scratching at his arm. And he used to do that a lot to the point we almost brought him to the doctors to see if there was anything going on. And all I could get out of him was, I want to be like brother. I want to look like brother. He thought if he could scratch his arm, his color would change on his skin.
Oh.
So we had to have the conversation with him that we had with Matthew when Nate came into our world. And that was, why did they look different to me? So we had that conversation about how, we're all made up differently. We have different colors, different nationalities and all of that. So the two of them had this great bond. They loved each other a lot. But then unfortunately, Matthew also struggled with stuff. Because of Matthew's identity, Matthew struggled with acceptance. Matthew struggled with belonging. So he would always be a follower. He never quite would lead, he would follow. And so in his high school days, he did a lot of following instead of leading and not always making the right choices when following. So when he went off to college, of course, did all the college things, the drinking and things like that. But Matthew used drinking to soothe those thoughts about why don't I belong? Where do I belong? because you see, Matt also part of his story is he was the only mixed race child, not only in our adoptive family, but in his biological family as well. And so his senior year of high school, we tried to get him the answers. Facebook had just come out. I was on Facebook, and then here's his birth mom. She's on there. So, of course, I friend request her. And of course, you do the thing that we all do. We look to see, well, who are they friends with? There was this one person that popped up, and I looked at it, and it was an African American man. And I remember I was at home. By now, my parents are divorced, and my dad was living with us. And so I said to my dad, go look at this picture. Tell me what you think. And he's like, wow, that kind of looks like Matt. I'm like, okay. So then my husband came home, the same thing. He's like, did you like progress Matt's age? I'm like, no, 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 no. So the gentleman was actually, I found out, was a track star at the same school his birth mom with. And all we had, and I tell everybody, if I get Alzheimer's, I will always remember this story, that Matt was a product of a one night stand with an old friend from school. So I started doing research, and I belonged to the Rotary at the time. And a friend of mine, Dwayne, he was a private investigator. And I had told my story at the meeting. And he's like, Pearl, do you want me to help you try to find him? I'm like, I would love for you to find him. So long story short, we found who we're still confident who it is today. We reached out to him and he offered to do a DNA test. But when we sent it to him, he claimed he sent it back to us and it never showed up. And then out of the blue, it shows up. Well, when I call him to get the results, he's now not taking my phone calls, which we find kind of ironic because if you offer to do the test and it comes in, you think you'd want the results, right? So we had to let Matthew know, listen, it supposedly is not a match. So again, it was another setback for Matthew. So fast forward, he, again, always just wanted to belong. He would, tell us all the time, I just want answers and, don't lie to him and stuff. So I remember he went to college and he started doing some drinking and we were a little concerned. And he came home from college. He was living on his own here or there, would come back home here or there. And he moved out on his own. And at one point, he connected with this group. If you're here in Ybor, it's a group downtown Ybor, who they take the Bible and they flip the Bible upside down. And it's all about the white man is the bad person in the world. And so I saw Matt being pulled to this group. And I got with some friends and we prayed. And they're like, Pearl, we've lost 6 young men to this group. All you can do is be like, how can I support Matt in this story? So it's like, okay, so that's what I did. It's like, he's old enough. He's got to make his choices. So his drinking was becoming really, really bad. And so he had come to us and he's like, I need help. And we're like, okay, what do you want to do? And he wanted to go to rehab. So we arranged for him to go to rehab. This is just as we were coming out of COVID. So we were doing all this COVID testing and everything. So he went to rehab and he came home from rehab and he was definitely very changed, very focused. Matt would often tell us Matt had lost a couple of friends, one to suicide and a couple of other ones to fentanyl overdoses. And he used to tell us, don't worry, mom and dad, I never want to do that to you. I know how I watch their parents, how they live. I don't ever want to do that to you. And I'll tell you that the reason I tell you that, I'll tie that in here in just a second. So Matt went on to live his life. He was doing really well. He was actually started a business with my husband. They own a business together and he met Brittany and he even shined even more. Like he was so in love with Brittany. He loved her daughter. He would date young girls and, they would have babies already. And he'd be like, oh, mom, these dads are deadbeat dads and, whatever. And he met Brittany and dad's not around and he just loved Evie. And Matthew, like me, was an empath. He could read somebody pretty quickly. He could get into intuition pretty quickly. And he said some concerns he had about Evie with her health. And some of those have come, I'm not going to show that now, but some of those have come to fruition. And her mom, Brittany, has just done a fabulous job. And Matt and Brittany, he loves her to death. And so Matthew's love was shining through her. And we were just so honored that we got to call him our son. We were so honored that we got the phone call to bring him home at a month old. I had fun with Matthew. He would love to go shopping with me. So I'd go shopping with Matt. And, I remember I was going on a cruise one time and we're shopping and he's like, why don't you ever have dad come with you? I'm like, cause your dad picks up clothes like I'm an old lady. I'm not an old lady. I want to have fun,
That's right.
And so he and I would go shopping and we'd have fun shopping together. And funny story about that cruise is, one year when Matt was a senior in high school, we had a place in South Carolina where we had sold and I had to go close it up. So my husband and I, we were sending his younger brother to a friend's house, and we told Matt, okay, this is the first time you're a senior in high school. We're going to let you stay at the house while dad and I go out of state and go take care of something. Well, funny story is Matthew used to say, I can never get away with anything because my mother always finds out. She knows too many people in town. And so during the day, that day when they were supposed to come home from school and my husband and I, Chuck, was supposed to leave, I had gotten 3 or 4 phone calls. Hey, Pearl, I hear there's a party at your house. Just want to make sure there's going to be adult
Uh-oh.
supervision. And I'm like going, yeah, no, there's no party at my house tonight. So
Mhm.
tell them all not to come. So I called Nick's mom and I'm like, hey, the boys think they're having a party here. I'm going to go pick up Nick's clothes. When they get home, they're getting in the car. They're going to help me unpack the house. And that's literally what we did. We took them. And he's like, man, I can never get away. So fast forward to 2018, he's out of college. He's living at home. And I'm like, we're going to go on this cruise. So I had said to a friend of ours who was like second family to Matt, I'm like, hey, Tony, just go by the house and check on them every so often. I'm sure he's going to have a party or whatever. And it's fine. So we go on the cruise, we come back, and Matt picks us up. I go, so how was the party? He's like, see, I knew I should have had one. I didn't have one because you knew I would have one. I'm like, well, that's your fault. Then I would have had a party. So that was the kind of fun relationship we had. He would just sit down, and he was an old soul. The thing that I did not like about Matthew is he used to say, and I tell you earlier, he was an empath. He used to say, Mom and Dad, I don't think I'm going to live past 25.
Mm.
And I used to say, do not talk that. Do not speak that in the world. I don't want to hear that. And, him and Chuck would have these in depth conversations, anything from football. We were both big football fans together. Matt and I were big Buffalo Bills fans. And so all of that. But that's the one thing that I can tell you, I would get so mad at him. Like, I would walk out of the room. I don't want to hear about that. You're going to live to be an old man. You're going to get married, all that stuff. So that's about Matthew.
Yeah, it's very uncanny how sometimes we just know. I tell people that I feel I knew Logan wasn't meant to stay from, I mean, all the way back to even when I was pregnant with him, because I would get so sad and I would cry because I just had this overwhelming feeling that I wasn't going to be able to keep him, for very long, that he was going to leave me in some capacity. Although, to be honest, at that point, I thought it was more like he's just, like I had seen from, relationships and whatever that I had been in, knowing other males, that he was just going to grow up and then not want anything to do with me. So I kind of, that's kind of where my brain went for that. But whenever he was younger, I'd sit on his bed before he'd go to sleep, or after I tucked him in, I'd sit on his bed and I would cry. I would just cry uncontrollably because something felt wrong. I had no idea at the time what was happening. And I mean, now in hindsight, I do believe that there was, an inner knowing that he wasn't meant to stay, and it's crazy to me how we can really feel these things. I think we're all more connected than, we ever like to admit. So thank you for the introduction, about Matthew. He sounds like such a great soul, such a great young man. I've seen pictures. He looked, just very happy. I mean, I know you've shared the struggles that he had, but he emits this light. Just in the photographs. I'm sorry I didn't get to meet him. Um,
He does.
yeah, I mean, and just hearing you, watching your facial features and hearing you as you talk about him just goes to show what kind of a personality, he had. So, thank you. Thank you for sharing. So please tell us then. So Matthew passed away in a car accident, July 25th, 2022. He was 25 years old. Can you please detail for us what had happened there? And then if you could follow up, I found it very interesting, that you mentioned about the racism component with your family. I'm curious as to what that entailed, especially with family, although I definitely understand how family can just go off the rails after, you lose your child. But how did you navigate that situation after he passed?
Yeah, I love to share that. So, yeah, so Matthew, and Brittany were sort of in the phase of moving in together, and it's so funny we're talking right now and how things happen. Like he just had Brittany send me a message. So it's
Oh,
just so
yeah.
crazy how this stuff happens.
Well,
It's
tell
so
her I said
wild.
hello.
I will do that. But he he had been out. I guess we figure out they had a disagreement, and so I'm sure he felt really bad about the things he said, and so Matt chose to go drink. And so I was actually out at the beach with every summer we have French kids that come over and I place them with families around town. And so I was at the beach with some of the French chaperones that were here. And I came home and Chuck had said he was having a rough day. I'm like, just tell him to come here at the house. He's like, oh, I didn't want to come here because the people were here. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm like, he can sleep on our bed. I don't care. But so he didn't come and the kids all went to bed. It was about a little bit after midnight that night, the night of the 25th and early morning 25th, and he butt dialed us. And he knew what I had. I have a big drinking and driving thing. I lost two really close friends to drinking and driving. He knew that was pet peeve. So he's like, he called us, he butt dialed us, we FaceTime him. I could literally see he was drunk. And I'm like, tell me you're in an Uber. He's like, I got an Uber. I promise. I'm like, okay. And then I called Brittany. I'm like, is my car in your driveway? Because he had our car. And she's like, no, it's not. And I'm like, oh, he lied to me. So I'm sitting there and I can't get a hold of him on the phone and nothing. And then all of a sudden, I'm telling my husband, like, Norton, so set up a scene. If you can picture our living room, we have a sectional couch. My husband has a recliner. He sits at the end of the couch on the recliner. I usually sit in this first spot in the sectional. So we're sitting there. I never sit anywhere else on that couch. Well, we couldn't hear from Matthew. I started shaking uncontrollably. I move over to the opposite side of the couch and I'm just like, something's wrong. Like I just could feel it in my bones. Like I'm getting chills telling you about it. Something's wrong. Something's not right. And Chuck's like, you got to come down. You're gonna have a heart attack. I'm like, this is not a heart attack. Something's physically wrong with him. And we got to find him. He's like, Pearl, we can't go find him. Where are we going to go look for him? And so I got up like on and off all night long. Like I'm texting him. I still have the text thread. I cannot delete his number. I still have not been able to do that. And so nothing. And so Brittany's calling and we can't get anything. I call in hospitals, nothing. So in that morning, we were dropping off the French kids to Busch Gardens. So Chuck's like, I'll go drop them off to Busch Gardens. We get back, we'll go see what we can find them. I'm like, okay, no problem. So I have my computer on. I'm trying to do some work, and all of a sudden across my phone comes this news feed that says Brandon Mann dies in single car accident. And I look at the feed and I'm like, that looks like my car, but I'm not 100% sure. So then I email the article to my email so I can look it up on my laptop. And there it was, my car wrapped around a tree. And I lost it, of course. I literally seen that. The next thing I do, and this is exactly how it happened, as fast as I tell you what's happened, I call the morgue and I ask if they have my son there. The morgue is not covered by HIPAA. So they said that he was there. They didn't ask who I was or anything like that, any identification. They just said, yes, he's there. Literally, as I hang up the phone from that, my phone then rings from the organ donation, asking me if I want to donate Matt's eyes. Now, had I not seen the article, had I not called, that's how I would have found out.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I'm like, call my girlfriend. She got here so fast. I call my mom. And then Chuck walks in the door and I have to tell Chuck. And that was the hardest thing in the world to have to do, is to tell him that we lost our son. And so my nephew is a police officer in California. So I've called my brother. My brother then calls my nephew and says, see what you can do to help Aunt Pearl. She has no information. Nobody's knocked at her door. She knows nothing. I don't even know where he's at, other than where the accident happened at some street. I'm not even familiar with it. So fast forward, we hear nothing from the police, nothing at all. We go pick up a rental car. My friend Liz Brewer has an organization called the Angel Foundation. I say to my girlfriend on the way to get the rental car, hey, can you call Liz? All I want is somebody to come clean my house because I know we're going to have family coming in. I've got the French here. I arranged for them to kids to get picked up. Literally, they wrapped their arms around us and started a fundraiser for us. I mean, we donate to them. Never thought in a million years I would be having to call them. So the next day, Tuesday, I still have no knock at my door. Nobody's called, no nothing. I go to the funeral home and I meet Lisa Nichols. And like you said, this is not the way I want to meet a friend. And her and I say today, we're the best of friends. We wish we never met each other. And so Lisa's sitting there, my girlfriend's sitting there. And then the gentleman that's helping us with the funeral, he's like, what do you know about his condition? I'm like, I know nothing. It's Tuesday afternoon, almost 2 days later. I have no information. And he was an African American man. And can I tell you, as fast as I said that, is how fast he got up and he went and called the morgue. And he had to come out and he had to tell us that we may not be able to even have an open casket.
Oh, no.
And I was sitting there and I'm going, oh my gosh, like I'm not going to like be able to see him. And so we went through that whole process and still Tuesday, nothing. And this gentleman, I have to tell you, he was so determined. Like, I'm like, I just want to be able to touch his feet. If nothing else, if I can't see him, I just want to touch his feet. I just want to touch part of him and be able to say goodbye. Right. And I'm like, get one of those froggers like we had during COVID. I don't care. Cover his face up, whatever. That gentleman used to work on the deceased and help them be presentable. That man stopped everything that he did, gave his clients to everybody else. And he went and worked on Matthew so we could see Matthew at opening. He did an amazing job. But by Wednesday morning, I still have nothing. So my girlfriend says, Pearl, there's an article in the newspaper that talks about Matt's passing. They've now, by the end of the day on Monday, they've named his name, and I still hadn't had anybody. So no next of kin has been notified. So Wednesday morning, she tells me there's this article and this police officer's name in there. So I emailed him and I said, how would you feel if your mother found out that you passed this way? Immediately my phone rings. And he's like, well, Mrs. Chiarenza, we called Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office because he passed away in Polk County at Swindle Road and County Line Road. It's like a T. And they were supposed to come notify you. And I'm like, oh, really? Okay. So they didn't. So then what? And I called 3 friends that I know, and one was Matt's football coach, and said, Pearl, they called us and then they pulled it back. They said you were notified. To this day, nobody's taken any accountability for it. I've called them out many different times and everything on it. And so all we know is that, unfortunately, Matthew, in leaving the place he was at a store getting alcohol, he went to a bar. The bar served him more. And I can tell you, they should have never served him when he walked in that door.
Mm-hmm.
They should have tried to take his keys away because they let him leave. And we do not have laws in the state of Florida that go after bartenders for doing that. So he went and he drove. And all the thing we can figure out is the road, when you go down County Line Road to Swindell Road, it looks like the road continues and the stop sign was not blinking like it's supposed to be. So he went right through the stop sign. We think he thought the road continued because he was new in that area. So he didn't know the area. The saving grace is that nobody else was in the car with him.
Mm-hmm.
And he did die instantly is what we were told. So fast forward, like I'm a mama bear. I'm like, I want answers. Why didn't you come to my door? What's going on? Stop making excuses. Well, Matthew, during his days of drinking, he had a DUI and he cleared it all up, did all the stuff that he was supposed to do. That's before he went to rehab. And so what we figured is they smelled the alcohol. They saw his nationality. And I didn't want to believe it. It took many of my friends of color to say, Pearl, sit down and let us have a talk with you. And they literally made an assumption on him and did not decide to tell us about his passing. Mm. And so therefore, that's how I found out. Now, interesting enough, this group that I had mentioned before that was an e-board that he got connected to during his rehab time, he called us one time and he told us, Mom, Dad, I know that those guys were a cult. And we're like, we're glad you figured out, son. Because we couldn't tell him, he wouldn't have believed us. I didn't find out till months later. So that was July, probably up around Gasparilla time. So probably January of 24, 23. His friend is like, Mama Pro, I saw those boys down there and I told them that what they said about Matthew was wrong. I'm like, what are you talking about what they said about Matthew? And they had done videos, and I have fought YouTube and I'm still fighting for one more video to get down. They had done videos that Matthew had committed suicide. People think Matthew committed suicide. Yes. I have friends that I still run into just recently said, I'm so sorry what he did. I'm like, what are you talking about what he did? He made a bad choice. And they're like, we thought he committed suicide. I'm like, he did not commit suicide. And I know he did not commit suicide because he was drinking and driving. And also, no matter what, that 25, I would never do that to you, Mom and Dad. That was so true. So he, that he made a bad choice to drink and drive. I talked earlier about when we did the adopting of Matthew for who would be racist or not in our family. My parents divorced after 43 years of marriage. I want to tie that back in for you. My dad came to stay with us for a little bit. Around that time, we found out who we're pretty sure Matt's biological dad is. And my dad turned racist on my son as he
Oh,
got older. He would take and hide my son's cleats and such for football. And Matt would be like, "Where are they at?" I'm like, what do we tell our kids? Put them where they're supposed to be. You always know where it's at. I didn't find out till later that through his second wife, who's now divorced from, had told me what my dad was doing. And I said, it's probably a good thing you never told me because I probably would have been in jail. I probably would have gone after my dad for what he did. But tying it back into Matt's death, my dad, unfortunately, I think he's very mentally ill. About a year and a half after he passed, out of the blue, my dad has this habit. He's a narcissist. I'll block him. He'll get a new phone number. So I've just gotten where I just don't block him anymore. But out of the blue, he texts me and tells me around the time of Matt's anniversary that my son got what he deserved.
oh, I'm so sorry.
It's just horrible. What people do and people say, they don't think about it. And I just say to him, you know, I forgive you for your behaviors and your actions. And when you go to heaven, you'll have penance to pay.
Mhm,
And one of them will be facing your grandson at that point too.
mhm. Well,
So
and I mean, what he had to say is definitely a reflection on what's going on inside of him, and
yes,
that's the one thing that, I talk about all the time, and I try to encourage, you know, my 14-year-old to understand about people, and anybody I can share it with, is that, these things that are spewed out of people's mouths, it has nothing to do with you. That is a reflection
yeah,
of what's going on inside of them.
yeah,
And I am so sorry that that is how he chose to, I'm gonna, in parentheses, say honor, right?
right,
Your
right,
son on
yeah,
the first year passing of his death. I mean,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
unfortunate.
It really is. So yeah, so to this day, I mean, I've called and I've done videos and everything. I've gone on anniversaries down to the tree and everything. And it's sad because the about a year or two before Matt passed that tree, I found out a friend of mine, she said probably couldn't come to the service because my cousin passed away that same tree. And then
Oh.
just last week, somebody else just passed that same intersection. And I've called them out. I'm like, what are you doing about this road? Like
Mhm,
it's horrible. Like, "Oh, we're gonna put a better stop sign in. Oh, there's gonna be a gas station." I'm like, "None of that's there right now. This is a dangerous intersection." And yes, I don't know about my friend's cousin, but yes, Matthew made a bad choice. And the young man last week who passed away, he was a hit and run. He hit somebody and he took off and within his car and he went through the stop sign as well. So it's a bad intersection. It's County Road and Swindell Road in Plant City, but it still doesn't excuse the fact that somebody's child passed away at an intersection and deserved to have that knock on the door.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, whenever, you had mentioned that. In fact, I was talking to, Danielle this morning. She's my trainer. While I was over there, I was telling her a little bit about your story, and I had mentioned that you heard about your son's death on the news, that, there was nobody who had the decency to show up at your door. And it was funny because I was watching for her facial reaction, and it took her a minute. It took, a hot minute for it to sink in, and when it did, just the look on her face, and I was
Yeah.
like, "There it is," now,
Mhm.
it's sunk in, and she just kept going, "Oh my god, I can't imagine. Oh my," and she's like, "Oh,"
Yeah.
and she was speechless for a
Yeah.
time. I mean, that's I and I'm speechless. I mean, that's, actually the antithesis of what we experienced in our crash, because we had so much support from law enforcement, that I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
Still, 3.5 years later, still having not one
Yeah.
person coming to you and saying,
And especially after my nephew even called, like, my nephew called, and they promised him somebody was gonna call us, and 2 days later, still ain't nobody had called. He called a cop to a cop, "Hey, this is my aunt," and the ironic part about all of this is the same police department that this Lakeland Police Department did not give us any notification. I used to have a health and wellness clinic out in Lakeland, and I helped many,
"Mm,
many of the police officers in that thing, and I'm, like, going, "Wow." Like, you can't tell me that name didn't pop up and be like, somebody have to recognize that name because it's
mhm,
Lakeland's not a big town, and to this day, they still can't they still, of course, they won't acknowledge it, and it's, way past it's and the thing is for me, it's not going to bring him back, of course. None of that's going to change what happened. If life was a remote, oh my God, so many things we could all change in our lives. However, I want them to learn a lesson and be like, "Don't let this happen again." Like, what parameters at first you're like, "Oh, well, you're so far away, it's county." I'm like, "I don't care. You take ambulances and people from one county to another county. You mean you can't get in my car?" And then ironic on top of that, I have 2 police officers from Lakeland live down the street from me. I'm like,
Really?
"You couldn't even call them and be like, 'Hey, can you do us a favor?'" Like, you couldn't even look up and be like, "Who do we know in the area?" I'm like, "Come on," you know? So, it's all the excuses doesn't change anything. The ironic part that I carry forward in my grief part because I mean, we could sit in our room, I could cry my life away and everything, but the really interesting part of my story is, like, I've been doing this coaching for years, you know? When we adopted Matthew, I literally put my life on hold because I was like, "I finally have this family I wanted," and so I'm gonna go be a mom. That's what I'm gonna do, and then, I went on a journey to lose weight, and then I became a health coach, but the ironic part about all of that is that in doing that, in health coaching, I started having people going, "Hey, Pearl, will you talk to my friend?" Because I was always about, why did you choose to go off the plan? Like, if you chose a cupcake, let's talk about what was going on in your head, right? And so Matt used to not like that about me because I'd be like, "Okay, let's talk about," I mean, I would like try to be like, and they're like, "Mom, you're woo woo. Why are you being woo woo with me?" But literally 2 days before he passed, him and Chuck were, working on a business they got together. And the interesting part about Matt's journey with drinking was Chuck knew he was retiring, and he bought this business that they do installations for realtor signs. They put them on the market. He bought the business in hopes of saving Matthew from drinking, and I'm like, "You can't, that's not gonna be the answer." And he found out later, he learned that lesson. But in 2 days before Matt's passing, before, he went on this wagon that he was on, he was here working in the garage with Chuck, and
Mm.
I went out to the garage to go say hi and see what they're doing, and he literally said, "Hey, mom, can you throw me a bottle of water?" And I talk about this every time I speak on stage about my story, and I'm like, I chuck the water to him, and he's like, "Damn, now you figured your blank out, but you can finally throw something, right?" And that spoke volumes to me, and that's what I carry today because I could literally close everything up, and everybody would be like, "Oh, she's in her grief," and I could just go hibernate somewheres, and but that's not how Matt saw me finally live my life, and that's not the example I wanna. We still have Nate. Nate's got
Mhm.
married last year. He's got a beautiful wife. That's I still have family. I still have a legacy to live, and to honor Matthew and be still to live what he saw me becoming is what I do now. That's part of my journey, and that's what I want to carry. We did do something to honor him. So two things we do to honor Matthew. One is every year when his birthday comes up, and my friend Lisa, she inspired me to do this. I'm big birthday, just like Christmas. I'm big everything, holiday and everything. So every year at his birthday, I go to Publix and I find out who has a birthday on or around July 7th because he passed 2 weeks after his 25th birthday.
Oh my
And I
goodness.
ask, yes, I ask who has a birthday. I look for a little boy, but if there's not a boy, I'll do it for a girl. I pick a different Publix. I don't get the same person every year. And I buy a cake. I pay for the cake for that person. I do a note to the mom about, really enjoy this time, really, really embrace this day, and then I buy flowers for the mom and balloons for the little one. And I pay for it and I give it to the person at Publix. It's always funny though, because the person at Publix is like going, "Well, I can't give you their names." Like, I don't want their names. I just want to know. Give it to me so I can go pay. I'll bring it back to you. I promise. So I do that every year. But one of the things that Matt saw me do, and part of my story, as you shared me being able to say yes to your life coach, was to start saying yes to me, start speaking on stages and stuff. And Matt was always like, "Wow, mom, how do you do that? Like, how do you get on stage and speak?" And I'm like, I used to be a shy little girl. I'm like, there was this thing called Dale Carnegie that brought me out of it. But he used to say, "Mom, we should do a book together. We should speak together about raising children of a different culture." And I'm like, "Well, what does that look like for you?" He's like, "Talk about the things that I've struggled with and talk about the things you went through, when you adopted me and things like that." I'm like, "Okay." So the year he passed, in my head, I was like, "Okay," because Matt was all about numbers. He was born 7/7/97. He passed 7/25/22. Everything like Brittany, his girlfriend, like, "Oh my God, that's Matt's number. This is Matt's number." Everything was numbers for him. So in my head, I'm like, "Okay, we need to do this in July. We need to release it on the 25th of the month, and we need to have 25 authors because I figured, he passed at 25 years old, right?" I have to tell you, for a year and a half, I sat at 7 authors. And finally, it took my girlfriend, Pam Owens, to say, "Pearl, Matt was about numbers, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." She goes, "Maybe it's supposed to be 7. 7,
Mhm.
7, 97, 7 authors." I'm like, "Wow." And so last year on July or this year rather, on July 25th, we released a book called Beyond Skin Deep: Stories of Cross-Cultural Adoptions, and you can get it on
Nice.
Amazon. But it's all the different stories, and my husband wrote some in it. Nate did not wanna write it. He's not comfortable sharing. Nate still struggles, with his passing. He struggles with Matt's choices. He did not like Matt's drinking, and he struggles with the fact that he passed, in his drinking. But I will tell you, Nate gave the most beautiful eulogy any
Mm.
brother could have given, and it was just amazing, and he did a beautiful job for his brother.
And how old Nate is how many years younger than
So
Matthew?
they're 2 and a half
Okay.
years apart.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
so
was just trying to
he
put
was
together.
just yeah,
Yeah.
23, yeah. And the funny story about, Matt's service, if you can find something funny in the service, is, he was always about, what's the the race show, Fast and Furious. He loved
Mhm.
that. He loved playing the game Fast and Furious, and he used to say, "Mom, someday I'm gonna be Fast and Furious." I'm like, "Don't you ever talk like that. Don't let me find out." And so it's so funny because when we were doing the service, we don't have a lot of family here. And so they had asked us, "Do you need a police escort?" We're like, "No, it's gonna be small. Everybody knows where you're at." Well, family starts showing up. And finally I said to the funeral home, like, "I think we need a police service." Well, we ended up having like 6 cop cars that for that ride over from where we were at. And I remember sitting in the car telling Chuck, "He's got his Fast and Furious little shit."
Yeah, uh-huh. Yep, it always finds its
So
way of coming full circle. Always,
yeah,
always.
always, yeah.
So a big part of your work, as we slowly start to wrap up, a big part of your work before Matthew's passing, and since has been public speaking, life coach, health coach. Can you talk to us about how, kind of what you're doing as the life coach, but also how you integrated your journey since Matthew's passing into the public speaking that you've been doing and, the education and how that has played a part in moving forward in your life coach business.
Yeah, I'd be honored to do that. So, before Matt passed, there's always that before and the after we hear so often. But before he passed, like I shared, I was a people-pleasing addict. You asked me to come organize your sock drawer, I'd be like, "What time you want me there?"
Amen,
And
sister.
so, yeah, so I took this identity and destiny course after in my health coaching world, people started saying, "Pearl, will you talk to my friend because you always ask me about what was going on in my mind when I make the choices that I'm not supposed to make." And so my friend doesn't need to lose weight, but they need to talk to somebody. So I'm like, sure. So I took this identity destiny course with my friend Shannon. I met her at the course. And at the end, we had to give our I am statement. I still was saying all the things. I am a mom. I am a wife. I'm this. And she called me out. She's like, "I hear nothing about Pearl. I still hear everything about Matthew and nothing about your son, Nate." I'm like, holy gosh, she is so right. I hated my name growing up. I was short. My maiden name was Nap, so I was called Minnie Pearl, Poor Harbor, Go Take a Nap, all these things, right? And I would come home crying, "Mom, change my name, please change my name." My name's 3 generations old. My mother was, of course, "No, you're not changing your name." So fast forward at the end of this class, I was like, "I gotta figure this out." She's right. So I literally told Matt, "Here's your gift. I'm wrapping it up, sending you off to college." Went and tried to reconnect with my son, Nate. So we have a better relationship today. And then I had to figure out who I was. And I realized how much of a people pleaser I was. So I needed to make changes. And so in order to do that, I had to do something radical. God shows up in different ways for us all the time. So I'm walking into this network meeting and I happen to see this rock on the ground. And I'm like, "Oh, it's a pretty rock." I stick it in my pocket, go to the meeting, and somebody's like, "Hey, Pearl, we're doing this fundraisers for some sort of animals." I don't remember what it was. "You think you could help us?" And my hand literally went across my pocket of my pants. I'm like, "No, I can't help you do that." And literally just said it like that. And then I sat there, I was like, they're like, "Okay, no problem. We just thought we asked." And I thought, I didn't get struck by lightning. They're still talking to me. They don't hate me. So that's okay. I can say no. So I decided to take that rock and it became my catalyst for making and stepping into the word no as a complete sentence. And you can say it like you want $1,000,000.
I
So that
love
rock,
that.
I made a commitment to move 3 times a day.
I say that all the time. No is a complete sentence. It is. I
So
remind
I decided to
people.
move the rock. Yes, it's a complete. Yeah, 100%. So I decided to move that rock 3 times a day by saying no to something. At the end of the day, if I had not said no to something 3 times, I either called, text, or emailed somebody. That led to me becoming stronger in the word no. And as I became stronger, I realized I was sleeping better at night. I wasn't worried about who I didn't call, who I didn't email, what I didn't do. So I was happier. I wasn't stressed out. Then I became empowered. That's when I started speaking on stages and starting my own coaching business. And so that led me to showing up on stages and in rooms and people like, what's so different about you, Pearl? Like did you cut your hair? I'm like, nope, I learned to say no. And so I call it the radiant glow up. And then it led me to become originally who I want to be. All growing up, I wanted to be a teacher. I went to school. I didn't have guidance on how to get me to college to do any of that. So I jokingly say, I'm teaching all those elementary kids that I would have had. I'm just coaching them in their middle age right now and helping them to learn to live a legacy. Matt's passing has showed me that we're not promised tomorrow. Literally 2 weeks after Matt passed, somebody knocked at our door that didn't know Matt had passed and was coming by to see him. And we had to sit down and tell him Matt passed. That was the worst thing ever to have to do that. And so I was like, I gotta really lean into this even more and coach and help women understand we don't have to wear our armors every day. Your armor is you. Your armor is your name, and your armor is who you are first. Because if tomorrow, if I come to your eulogy and I don't see at least 5 people saying what they saw you do for self, you got a problem and we need
Mhm.
to talk. Like you will see me sit in my front porch swing. You'll see me take a staycation. I will go to the movies with Nate and watch a movie together. Self-care is not selfish, but I got to do things for self. And so that's what my mission is. My retreats were started before Matthew. We have our 10th retreat next year, and it truly is about showing up like you were born. No makeup, nothing in your hair, in your PJs. You can let your girls hang loose. We're going to work on transformation. We're going to work on yoga. We have a massage therapist in the house. We have a Reiki person in the house. We're going to teach boundaries. You're going to walk away so transformed. I mean, to just give you an example really quick, Jen Bethune, who's was local here, she lost a son when I think Ethan was 5 years old. But she came to my retreat. She wasn't going to come because she's like, I have to wear makeup. And I sat and listened to her story. And her story was she put makeup on to get out the door every day to face the world after her son's passing. I was like, that's fine. Come talk at my retreat. That's your story.
Mhm.
I believe in sharing stories. She came to my retreat. She decided not to wear any makeup. She saw everybody else. She was empowered. She went home, closed up her business. She was my dog groomer. I lost my dog
Oh,
groomer.
no.
She closed she closed up her business. And guess what she did? She took her husband and family, I think 4 kids, 5 dogs, or 5 kids, 4 dogs, I can't remember. And they went cross country in a Bluebird bus. Do you know if you go look at the Netflix show on Gabby Petito, she was one of the reasons why they found Gabby Petito.
No, no
So
kidding.
so if she had not come to my retreat, who knows what would have happened. So
Wow.
my retreats are so transformational that they make life-changing things. And so that's what I want. I want women to come into my world that are ready to make a change. Whether you're a high achieving woman that's working a high-end job and you need to spend time with your family, or you need to spend time with self if you don't have kids, or you're that CEO mom who's running the household during the day while everybody's at school and at work. I want you in my room. I want you in my programs because I want to teach you that no is a complete sentence. And if you don't start saying it now, you might regret it later. Don't wait till me in my 40s to be like, holy gosh, who the heck am I? Do
I
it
know.
now
I get
because
it.
here's the other thing. You go ahead.
No, I just said I get it. I definitely get it. Did we lose audio?
Yeah,
Did we lose it?
we're here.
All right. All right. Hold on. Just a second. I blame my daughter. I think she's watching something, so she's taking up my bandwidth. Okay, go for it.
So if like with taking Jen as an example, I want women to make these changes in their lives because we're not promised tomorrow, as you and I both know. And
Mhm.
I don't want you to look back and I don't want your family to say, I wish she would have or I wish she could have. Do it now because it's the legacy you want to leave behind. And here's the thing, it's not a cliche about overflowing your cup. You have to overflow your cup, and the overflow is what you give others. And that's really what I want women to remember, that you have to say yes to your life now.
That's beautiful. That's all beautiful. I think that is something so very many people can use. Tell me a little bit where people can find you. I know we'll put your information in the show links as well. So I've got your LinkedIn link, your website link, but tell people where they can find you and anything else you might want to relay to them, maybe getting to work with you.
Yeah, so you can find me on all social media, Pearl Chiarenza. You just look up Pearl Knapp, Knapp, and I'll pop up everywhere as well. Women's Successful Living. You can Google me, you'll find me there. Actually, right now we're doing something really fun. We released a journal and coloring book. It's called the SHERO Reset, so you can get that on Amazon. But if you buy that and you reach out to me through the show notes, I will actually send you for free our SHERO Vision Guide. It's actually called My SHERO Vision Guide. It's a book right here. And it's actually putting your vision in its own magazine. So you do everything in a magazine.
Wow.
And it's got coloring pages and everything. So that's a great way to work with me. Just come into my world and talk to me. And there's different ways I can tailor anything. You can be with me for 6 months along with the retreat. If you just want to come to retreat, that's easy. Just go to wslivingretreats.com, and you can find information there too.
Yep, and I will put that. I'll put that definitely in the show notes as well. But like I said, your LinkedIn. So Pearl's LinkedIn will go into the show notes, and in that LinkedIn, you can find about the retreat. You can find her own podcast. You can find her YouTube channel, the website, the book that she just mentioned. So all sorts of resources are available in her LinkedIn account. So Pearl, I am so grateful to have been able to spend the past hour with you. Thank you so much for coming on and telling us about Matthew and sharing your experience around that, and also sharing, the resiliency that you carry forth in living a life even through child loss and pain and trauma. I definitely think very many people are going to um, find this entire episode so very, very beneficial. And I'm hoping that people will reach out and schedule a time to meet with you.
I do as well. Thank you so much. I was honored to be on with you today, and I look forward to having you on my show soon.
Yeah, we will get that scheduled. So for everybody who has made it this far into it, thank you for sticking around. We appreciate you listening, and we will see you on the next episode of Trauma Uncensored.